Connecting. Okay, it says that we are live, so I'm going to start now. Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Buckman. Welcome to this week's episode of Straight Talk About Racism. Today, we will be featuring a group of high school and early college students, our youths, who will be talking about their takes on racism and especially the climate of our country today. I'll be your moderator today. My name is Emma Buckman. I'm the Deputy Director of March on Maryland. Welcome. Everyone today. We're excited to have you all here. I am going to start by just saying if you are watching this through the Arundel Patriot, thank you for your support. If you'd like to see more news like this to get more access to things like S.T.A.R, then please become a Patreon subscriber to the Arundel Patriot. You can make a monthly donation of as little as $1, $5 a month. Any support goes a long way. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to move on and introduce all of our youth today, and I'm going to do this simply in the order that they are on my screen. So I'm going to start with Chandler Pope. And if you could, if everyone could just start with, name, age, where you go to school, and why you wanted to join this conversation today. So Chandler.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chandler. I'm a rising senior. I go to Key School in Annapolis, Maryland. And I basically wanted to do this. I thought it was a cool opportunity, especially now with what's going on, in our country today. I just thought it was a cool opportunity to voice my opinion. I go to an all-white school, and I'm very involved in the diversity and inclusion events that we have there. And it's very rare that we get a platform to kind of just speak, truly without any censorship. So this was a cool opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you, Chandler. All right, we'll move on next to Dylan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dylan. I attend the Key School in Annapolis. I'm 17. I love activism. I want to make change. And that's why I'm here today.
Awesome. Next, we have Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm 18. I'm an incoming sophomore at Franklin and Marshall College. I wanted to be involved because I've always kind of been involved in activism, and this was a great way for me to kind of listen and learn, as well as kind of, I think, share some much needed information with other white allies.
Okay, next I think we have Sumaya.
Hello, I'm Sumaya Mordecai. I'm 17. I'm a recent graduate of Arundel High School, and I joined this from today to talk about my experiences with racism and how I would like to better the handlings of it in the community.
Thank you, Sumaya. Next, I have Preston.
Hi, my name is Preston. I'm 18 years old. I currently go to Frostburg State University. I'm a rising sophomore there. The reason why I'm on this call is, honestly, I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of fearing for my life, and I'm tired of people choosing to be ignorant. And if I'm able to enlighten someone, maybe one person, two people, I want to take that opportunity to do so.
Awesome, thank you. Next I have Mikhail.
My name is Mikhail. I'm 17 years old. I'm a junior at Meade High School, and I joined this conversation because honestly, I feel like younger people's voices aren't being heard on issues such as racism, and I really want my voice and other people's voices to be heard. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Mikhail. Next on my screen, I have Mimi.
Hi, I'm Mimi. I go to the Key School. I am a rising junior. I wanted to join in this conversation because my mom is a very activist-heavy person. She loves fighting for what we deserve, and I just wanted to be part of this conversation and show how everyone needs their voice shown in this issue.
Great, thank you. Next is Evelyn.
Hi, I'm Ev or Evelyn. I am a rising junior at Key School, and I'm here like Mikhail because I feel like the older generations aren't listening to us, and we are the future of this country, and we have important things that need to be heard. And I'm definitely here as a white ally to listen and learn and share some stuff maybe. That's it.
Thanks. And then last but not least, I think we have Marin.
Hey guys, I'm Marin. I'm 19 years old. I'm a rising sophomore at the University of Maryland, College Park. And I'm here because I want to be a part of the change that needs to happen, that should have been happened. And I think it takes a village to make that change spark and really, happen. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here today again. Usually at the beginning of S.T.A.R, we start off with some content just to sort of get the conversation going. So today we have a clip from CBS. It's from around the time, it's present, and it's interviewing children about what they think of racism in this country, the systemic racism in this country. And so I'm going to play it for you guys, and then we will discuss. So let me. Share. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. No, don't do that. Yes, do that. All right.
Protests across the nation over the death of George Floyd are forcing parents to have tough conversations about racism with their children. We spoke to several kids about their feelings on race and police violence. And as you'll hear, they have some very strong opinions.
I want to see police brutality ended. It's not okay. You can't kill someone and get away with it.
George Floyd! I think that there's a lot of injustice because we're peacefully protesting police brutality, and then police brutality is happening at the same time.
Someone that is supposed to protect us is actually harming others and killing them, and it's just racism is never ending.
I would tell the people that it doesn't matter which skin color you have.
We are Black people. You can't really change us. Just because you treat us unfair, that's not really going to affect me because I'm proud of who I am.
Ibram X. Kendi is author of the upcoming book Anti-Racist Baby, about how to raise anti-racist kids. He's a CBS News contributor and joins us now. Ibram, good morning. I want to point out there was a 6-year-old girl, as we saw Ayana there talking, which shows you even really young kids are feeling what's going on right now. So how should parents be talking to them about this whole question of racial justice?
Well, actually, I think we should first emphasize that parents should be talking to their children, because I think many parents believe that babies are colorblind, that young children are colorblind, but the studies say differently. As early as 3 months, babies look more at the faces of people whose race matches their caregivers. As early as 2 years old, children discern people's behaviors based on their race. And so we should be having these conversations about race. We should be trying to teach our children that all the racial groups are equals, that we live in a beautiful rainbow of colors, and they're all on the same level and they're all equal.
Yeah, and they're also taking their cue from our own behavior, aren't they?
Oh, without question. If someone wants to raise a child who believes in justice, who's striving to be anti-racist, who believes in equality, it's important for them to be that themselves. I mean, we teach our children our philosophy, and so it's important we teach them an equitable philosophy.
We had a protester earlier in the broadcast, a young African-American woman who said, when your complexion is a weapon, you're never unarmed. And you've written about this very subject. As a black parent, what do you tell a black kid right now?
I think you can simultaneously talk to a black child about how, because of the color of your skin, people are going to view you as dangerous. People are going to view you as violent. But you know what? You are not dangerous. You are not violent. There's nothing wrong with you. And if someone thinks there's something wrong with you, that means something is wrong with their ideas. And you have to always remember that. And so just as it's critical for parents of color, of children of color to teach their children there's nothing wrong with them, there's nothing inferior about them, it's critical for white parents to teach their children there's nothing superior about them.
You say parents need to be anti-racist themselves in order to raise anti-racists. So if you're a white parent at this moment, how do you model that to your kids?
I think you model that to your kids by recognizing the true source of the problem right now. And the true source of that problem is police brutality. And the source of that source is racist policy, is the racist ideas that pervade American policing. And you should then be figuring out, okay, how can I contribute to the resistance, to the struggle against racism in this country by joining organizations, supporting policymakers who are trying to dismantle institutional racism and racist policy.
Yeah. And as you point out, Ibram, I think the most important thing is that you recognize as your kids are feeling all of this, you need to talk to them. Ibram X. Kendi, thank you. And Anti-Racist Baby will go on sale June 16th.
Okay, so I'll stop it there, and I would just like to, if anybody has a candid first impression of that video, please feel free, whoever wants to speak.
I feel like it's great that parents teach their kids the reality of what's happening in the world to keep them informed. And by doing that, they can educate others. And so they can make a change. Yeah.
I agree with Dylan. I kind of like found the coverage kind of, I don't want to say not helpful, because the media, when I think of the media, of course we need to understand that the media kind of twists things, and it's not really the best way to get our information unless it's trustworthy. And instantly after watching the first few seconds of that clip, the news anchor says that parents are forcing them to have conversations about racism. It should not be about force. It should have been a conversation that you had with your child. It should have been a conversation in schools. It should have been a conversation that you've had, when you have a sit down, white, black, it doesn't matter. It should have been a conversation, because that's so prevalent in today's society and needs to be known. And your kids need to know about this before they go out into society and before it happens to them, and it just happens so suddenly that they don't know what to do. They don't know how to feel about themselves, and it starts to diminish their character, and it just diminishes what they feel like inside, and makes them become more insecure about who they are and what kind of skin color they are in. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Marin. The first thing I thought about when I saw this video was about how many times I've had the talk with my parents. That talk where you get the list on how to act when you come in contact with a police officer. And we're all forced to have that talk as Black children. It's not like it's a normal thing. So I guess the fact that white people are now finding out that they need to have those talks I don't feel bad about it. You should, like you said, you should have been having these conversations anyway. I don't really want to still be having the talk with my children when the time comes. So it's just, it's really disappointing that these things are so normalized for us. And then there's so many people who are just now, I guess, realizing what should have been happening.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that I wanted to add on to. It's not like Black people, like African Americans, have these conversations with their kids, And I'm African, I'm from Ethiopia, and I never had that conversation with my parents because like they're from a different country, they come from a different mentality that they never experienced until they came to this country. So it's also a conversation that African parents need to have a conversation with their kids, because they might not really realize that it happens to us. So that should change, and they need to really realize that it happens to us too.
For me personally, I
It's
thought.
very.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can go. You can go.
I was gonna say it's very like disheartening because I feel like like now everybody's starting to take it seriously, but before, even though it was the same stuff going on, like and as far back as I can remember, like we were my brother. Oh, it's hard. It's really hard because nobody ever took it seriously in this area. Like all my white friends, well, not all of them. Like I had one white friend I remember. It was Thanksgiving, and I forgave her for this. It was like years ago. I first moved out here when I was in fourth grade. I think this might have been either fifth or sixth grade. And we was talking about, I forgot who it was, but it was one man who was killed in police brutality. And we were doing a Coke and Pepsi thing, like a booklet question and answer thing. And she was like, it was something like, when was the last time you watched the news? And I said, recently, like I watch it all the time. And she like said something like, oh, last time I watched it, some black guy got killed. Like police ended like this nervous, like giggle. And I was like in shock, because that's what made me realize like white kids don't really get to talk, when stuff like this would happen. And we would get to talk when we was young. Like I remember my brother, he had to be like 4 or something at the time when Trayvon Martin got killed, and he was told that he can't wear hoodies out in public. And the fact that he didn't even get killed by a cop, it's still like you do as they say to try and keep your life. And we always had to be taught these things. It's nothing new. Like by me, like I'm a realist. I'm like, all right, this is the tough reality. Like it's the hands that we was dealt with. It's not right. But I'm not about to act colorblind and try to make some fake facade for me and not teach my kids, and act like everything's fairy tales and rainbows when it's not. I just think that it's sad that people is now learning to teach their kids about it and talk to their kids about it. Especially like you think the talk, you think birds and bees or whatever it's called. But that's the first talk. Police brutality talk is the first talk that black kids have to be taught. Like it is, I feel like it's better now that more kids are being taught about this, and it should have been done way before. But it's good that it's being taught now.
Preston, you were gonna add something?
Yes. To be completely honest, I thought the video was very frustrating, honestly, because it kind of, in my opinion, it painted this narrative that racism, or the extent of racism, whether it be police brutality or systemic racism, this, that, and the third, is a foreign topic. Like it just now happened. Like all of a sudden George Floyd got murdered and now it's a big topic. Everyone's up in arms when that's not even the case. It's going to take more than just a talk to make people anti-racist. And because you can talk to your children, but what are they talking about when you're not around? Well, how are they interacting with the people with, like if it's a white kid, how are they interacting with their peers? You have to be truly anti something, you have to hold everybody in your circle accountable. When when you yourself can be anti-racist, you can anti-homophobic, just that all of that stuff. But if you hear somebody talking about it, are you going to check them? Are you going to be able to speak up and be like, nah, like that's not how we roll over here? When I honestly believe that that's not the case, and I feel like, again, with that, you're almost, for anti-racist people, you're almost rewarding a fish for swimming. It's like, congratulations, you're a decent human being. Like, it, I just feel like it's kind of, oh, for me personally, it's kind of belittling almost. It's like, and it's probably gonna be like a 1 month, 2 month facade, like, cool, but is this something that you're gonna continue doing decades down, centuries? Like, are you going to continue? Are you gonna? You can have the talk, but are your kids gonna have that talk? And then so on and so forth. I know for myself, being a black individual, like, I know for a fact I'm gonna have to have that talk with my children. Just like my mom had to talk with me, just like my grandma had to talk with my mom. Like, this is something that is going to have to happen. But for my white counterparts, is this just going to be like a one-time thing? Like, I'm gonna do it just to say I did it, not I'm gonna do it and actually try and invoke change. That's just my point of view. I personally did not like that video. It was more performative, if anything.
I agree completely with Preston.
Yeah, I agree definitely. Although I will say I think it could be a little different maybe with younger kids. I think maybe I would allow them to maybe grow up a bit and then they can come out of that more performative stage. I think conversations are still valuable at least while they're still young and in the house. But definitely like as they get older, they need to be doing more than just talking. Like we've been talking ever since the first African slaves stepped on the shores of America. Like we're done talking now. But I wouldn't, I don't think it's a bad thing for kids in the house to have conversations.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have that conversation. It's a very good thing to have that conversation. But I'm saying, what else are you doing? What else are you doing? Like you said, we have been talking for almost 600 years. Like, we have been talking. What are you going to do? It's like there's no more talking at this point. It's either you do or you don't.
But
I know
also,
that. Oh, wait, go ahead. Go ahead.
you got to keep in mind that sometimes their parents know better, but their grandparents don't. So they spend most of the time with their grandparents or their great grandparents who have those racist ways set into their mind from when they were growing up. Those get stuck in your mind. Those get like stuck in your brain because of where they grew up. But their parents may know better. So it really just depends on who you're around and raised by, really.
And question: are you insinuating as if the child is like young, like toddler, like just, or are they more self-aware, more, because again, that goes back to being able to hold your peers accountable. I know you are not your grandparents, you are not your parents. If I if if I was white and my granddad was MAGA all the way, or talking about like F gay people, this, that, and the third, I'd be like, whoa, like that's not, no. And I would educate and I would call them out. Again, like, it's more than, you can't hide behind that sheet of I was raised this way, or hide behind the sheet of, oh, they know no better, or that's just how they are. No, that's not what we do now. Like, you can't do that.
I'm
Can I
not
just
saying that. Oh, sorry.
Can I just add on to Preston's like quick little spiel? No, like I'm completely understand where Preston's coming from. Like, it's it again, if somebody is raised from, a family where their like mindset is basically instilled in them, it's like at that point, I said this before, it's like you have to educate, not was it educate and not indoctrinate. You have to educate students. When you educate students, that's when they see the history, they hear the history, and they think back like, whoa, this is back then, but today's a modern time. It's a different time where things need to be changed. I don't care if you were raised in an environment where, you hear all this negativity and all this stuff. If you are your own person, and if you choose to be open-minded, and if you choose to be, understanding all points of the spectrum, you will understand that this is not okay. You will understand, like, we need to realize that, students need to realize that if this happened, it can't happen in today's society. So I'm with you, Preston. I understand where you're coming from.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it gives them an excuse to be racist. I'm just saying it's not always the parents' fault. So that look about parenting for anti-racist babies, maybe they're being raised by their grandparents. I'm just saying it's not an excuse that they shouldn't know better. So but sometimes you got to teach everyone. It's not just the parents, it's not just the family, it's teachers, it's the government system. You just got to keep that in mind, that it's built into our society that we're racist, and it's been going like that for years, hundreds and hundreds of years, but it does not give you an excuse to be racist.
Exactly. And can I just add on to that? I'm sorry. I just want to say, like, and that's where people need to start. I completely agree with you. That's where people need to start challenging others, challenging their peers, challenging teachers, regardless of, how wicked or bizarre your opinion might be. If it's worth saying what you have to say, challenge people, because we can't make a change if you're not sitting here voicing your opinion. Vocalize how you feel. That's when you challenge people. And let me just say, knowledge is power. I always felt that way. If you have the knowledge, you have the power to shut people down, because they have no understanding of what's going on. If you have facts, if you have all these statistics, whatever the case is, and you're talking to somebody who's rebuttaling you, you can challenge them and you can speak the facts that they can't argue for, because you have the knowledge to shut them down, because they can't continue arguing for something they have no idea about. So yeah, I'm with you.
And
sorry.
Nah,
if you had a point, I was going to ask a question to the group actually, because I was curious.
Okay.
Just I was wondering, do you guys feel that it is my job as a Black person to educate my white friends' racist parents or grandparents? Like, does that responsibility fall on me?
Not at all.
Okay.
Because racism is not a Black problem. It is 100% a white problem, in my opinion. It is not. We did not choose the color of our skin. We did not choose to be taken from our home, and like that is 100% a problem. You cannot bully someone and then ask them why they're bullying you. That there's no way. It's like, how can we solve a problem that we did not create?
And I definitely, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I definitely think that for a long time, the burden of trying to educate bigoted people has fallen onto people of color, and it is an incredibly privileged way of existing. If you say, oh, my grandpa, he was raised to be racist, it's not his fault, or I don't care about someone's political beliefs, I care about them as a person, and so if they're racist and I'm not, it's okay. But like, if a person of color cannot be, like, it is not safe for them to be around racist people, you are being complacent in racism if you don't call out racist people in your circle, if you don't cut them out. If I have kids and somehow my parents become racist, my kids aren't going anywhere near them, because I can't have like racist ideas instilled into my children.
It's a harmful environment.
Yeah. On the last call I was on, someone pointed out, and this was a fact. In 2020, unless you are someone that cannot create your own cognitive judgment and come up with your own opinions, there is about social issues, there's no such thing as ignorance. It is intention. You intentionally choose not to educate yourself. We live in a time where technology is at its peak. If you wanted to educate yourself, Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever you need to do to learn history.
Right.
We are in a time, you can learn anything right now. Choose to ignore, you choose ignorance, you choose to be racist.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've been saying that like constantly, especially since all of the protests have been flaring up with George Floyd, as they should. But obviously this has been an issue way before this happened. There's that people write on signs a lot like, if you're not angry, you haven't been paying attention. But I think, yeah, if you're not angry, you have actively decided to ignore the problem completely. Because you can't go on social media without seeing Black Lives Matter, say her name, all this stuff. If you are still saying White Lives Matter, you are not even trying, because it's clearly, you know, we clearly have the moral high ground and you're just ignoring, you know, the correct side, I guess.
And people who are like, oh, just like you said, like White Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, it's like, again, you see what's going on. Because if you didn't see what was going on, you wouldn't be saying All Lives Matter or all this stuff. But you choose not to be educated on why we are saying that Black Lives Matter.
I'd like to put something out there for the public. There is no such thing as a blue life. Not at all.
Yeah, people choose.
You choose to put on that uniform. You cannot choose to be Black. I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to be whatever color you are when you get out that uniform. For that mentality, especially for like Black cops, as soon as they see you out that uniform, they still got the upper hand. And when they see you out that uniform and they see your skin as a threat, they can use you as a target. And then what are you going to be saying? People, it doesn't start with like, it does start with everybody having a conversation, and we have to be aware, but we also have to be aware of what great we have. We can't be just taught, oh, we're gonna be a threat to the police. Like that's what my parents' mistakes was, and I forgave them for that, because I had to teach myself, I had to educate myself, because if I didn't, I would be, oh, everybody's equal, everybody's nice. I'm not about to judge this person just because the color of their skin. They're not gonna hurt me. They're not a threat to me. They wouldn't put me in harm's way. The school system is just disgusting. Like, growing up, like, people was just ignorant, and I feel like they're using George Floyd as like a bandwagon and trying to like not be judged by people. Like, one of my neighbors, you know, this lady, I put my trust in her for years, and then my sister was acting out one day, and I went and confided in her, talking about they was acting like stereotypes and stuff like that, and making us look bad. In the neighborhood, this lady gonna say, oh, how do you think I feel about Black men killing cops? And I was like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, you're comparing the oranges to apples. 1, 2, my dad's a cop and he's a Black man, so what are you talking about? And it's like, so now she wants to say stuff about George Floyd, and I'm like, no, if he wasn't down for it before, you're definitely not down for it now. Don't try to put on a fake for nobody. Like, people are like how y'all said, ignorance is bliss. And I feel like people need to educate and make their kids feel beautiful in a world where in a place where the world doesn't make them feel beautiful, in a place where the world make them feel ugly. You need to teach them about their greatness. Black history did not start in slavery. You know, Hispanics were not all like used for labor. That's not what we're all good for. You know, just stuff like that. We need to be as confident and comfortable and feel as like beautiful as our white counterparts, I feel.
If I could just interject a question, because we've been talking a lot about education and especially, you know, parents are saying one thing to their kids at home. What are they learning outside? What are they taught outside of their homes? And so I wanted to get a perspective from all of you of what was what was Black history like in your schools? Like, what were you taught about racism, about Black history in your schools, if you were taught anything? And I also want to ask, because this is something I've been asked to ask you guys a lot, could you share if it was a public school or private school environment? And I'm going to start with Mikhail because we haven't heard from him yet.
Okay, so I remember Black History Month in my school. I go to Meade High School, it's a public school, and I remember the teachers put up different significant Black figures on their doors. And as you would walk by in the hallways, you would see their doors decorated in art, and there would be news articles or different information sources about them. But other than that, there was really nothing else. There was no structural teaching. There was no class time on it. It was just, art on your door. And I kind of felt slighted at that, because if it's Black History Month, we ought to be learning about Black history. And even throughout the entire school year, we should be learning about Black history. And I don't think it should be confined to just 1 month, because there are significant Black people that have invented and founded different things that we use in our everyday lives. And I think that, as a high school student, as a young student, that's important, regardless of, what color they are or where they came from, especially Black history. Like, this needs to be talked about. This needs to be in the curriculum.
And I also went to Meade High, go Mustangs. I just wanted to say that, it's just kind of an imbalance in the curriculum. Like, we've been talking about, the Holocaust for like months. And then,
Right.
when it comes to like Black history, they might touch on it. And like, we really just learn about the main activists, like, MLK and Malcolm X. But, it goes further than that. We never were taught about how, there was a sit-in in Greensboro, and how there was a recipient for the Nobel Peace Prize, or how, we never heard about the first African-American astronaut who went into space. Why aren't we praised for the history that we went through? Our history is being neglected. So it's kind of hurtful, and it's disrespectful to our people that we aren't taught enough about how we underwent history and did all these amazing, outstanding things that can inspire the youth. Like, wow, there was an African American who went out into space. I could be an astronaut. It goes further than that. It goes, to inspiration that we could have, but we just don't get, because we're not taught the history that we should have been learned.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mimi.
Our school, I've been going to since pre-K. I go to a private school. We touch a little bit on it in pre-K 3 because we have a sister school there, and that's really the only thing we go over. We talk about it in 8th grade because we have world history. The only place we go over in Africa is South Africa and what Nelson Mandela did. And we have barely talked about it in high school. And we have an entire year dedicated to European history, where we read like 0 readings about African American history. So, and like there's plenty of readings about Black people in Europe, especially since they were the ones who started slavery and started slave trading to America. And it's crazy that they don't teach us this, and they don't even touch on it. The only thing they touch about is Columbus coming over to America. So it's crazy that we've gone all over the Holocaust at least 4 times, and we only gone over our own history of America like 0, which is what I'm doing which is what we're doing next year. And we need to touch on it because it's not fair to the people of African American descent to only have talked about European descent, which is what our school's full of.
Yeah, I totally agree. So me and Mimi go to the same school. And I can tell you, I've been in private school pretty much all my life since the 3rd grade. And there's I can think of like 2 main problems off the top of my head. There's tons more, but these are just the ones I could think of. First one is we aren't taught, I guess, repentance. The way, you know, they teach the Holocaust in Germany is so like, this was wrong. We shouldn't have done it. You won't see a Nazi statue. You won't see a Nazi flag in Germany. You just don't see it. America is lost with that. We have not done that at all. And it comes from our education. Our statues use like all these Confederate statues that are just being taken down, really? Like, come on. You know, I think that's something American education is missing. We don't teach our American students to understand the gravity of it and why it was so awful. And then the second thing I think is probably we focus, like Mirren said, we focus so much on Black pain and not enough on the great things about our culture. We are so much more than slavery. We are so much more than the 60s, that one era where Martin Luther King always pops up over and over again. We're so much more than that. So why don't we learn about it? You know, we have like elective courses maybe that aren't even being taught, but you know, those are the only times if you really seek it out, you can find it, but they're not given to you. All that's given to you is you were being whipped and then you were being hosed and now you have rights. And that's basically where it ends. And, you know, we're trying to actively change it, at least at Key School, but we still have a lot of work to do. So, yeah.
So
I got it.
I'll let you go. All
right. I got to call out Arundel High School. Y'all, I cannot make this up. It was like 2 years ago. Oh my gosh. Tell me why for Black History Month, somebody like made it, I think it was somebody made it seem like it was okay for the culinary class to cook chicken and waffles and cornbread and serve it to students.
Wow.
For Black History Month. And everybody's like, what is this? Like, cause it's like the people, the white staff, like administrators, we, like the Black staff, well, and it was barely in it. You could count on one hand how much Black staff was in there, aside from the custodial staff. And you have to walk on eggshells to try and make them, you know, we had a club called Aziza Peace. Walk on eggshells to try and make them allow us to do stuff for our History Month, which was going to be like a week for Spirit Week. We had to walk on eggshells so they can let us do what we wanted to do. But they just pulled some stuff like fried chicken and cornbread and serve it to us. First of all, it was nasty. Like, it's just disrespectful and it's a mockery. Like, why is this the first thing that you think of for Black history? And like what Mimi was saying with the classes and electives, my friend pointed out, why is European history AP, and I don't know if it's a year, I'm pretty sure it's a year, but African American history, which was taught by a white teacher, which he was great, but still like kind of awkward. And he often said we can't really get all of the teachers that we need out in one semester. But why is that taught for only a semester? It's only an honors class. But you got European history as AP. And I also like, I'm not one who looks at all people of color the same. Like, I know we have our differences, but I'd be like, why is it that, first of all, we barely get anything for Black History Month. It's like a week. And secondly, why is it that you guys are trying to cater to us and you're not including, you know, Hispanic History Month or Asian Pacific History Month and stuff like that? Like, that's how I felt about it. In Rebel High School, they dropped the bar. That like they went for a low blow for that.
I agree with you. It's like we're taught Black pain, but there's also Black success. You know, Black people have made significant contributions to this world, and we're not acknowledging it, except for Black History Month. I feel like we should be taught that, you know, every day. That should be part of our daily lives. I mean, that's important. That's key. So the educational system should really change. I mean, maybe Chandler can add on, but I don't think even this year we even touched on it. So no.
I just want to point out, first and foremost, Black History Month is the shortest month of the year. But yeah, I know because Marin and I went to the same school, Meade High School. I don't know how many times I learned about Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all those people, but haven't learned about any other significant people of like significant Black people. We talk about, I'm pretty sure my junior year, we spent almost a month, 2 months on World War II, but didn't not one time talk about the Tuskegee Airmen. Honestly, truthfully, it wasn't until this year I learned that there was a Black Wall Street. And then I also learned that it was destroyed. So there's very significant pieces that haven't even been touched. And I'm honestly learning more now about Black history than I have in like my entire tenure in primary school, honestly. And just like what Chandler was saying, a lot of Black history is Black pain, but we're not like, this is my opinion, how, but we don't talk about how, honestly, from, I would say like from the 70s to like late 90s, I would consider it as the Black Renaissance, because we like ruled pop culture as far as music, movie, art, and a lot of the artistic styles, whether like again music, style, clothing, has shaped the way it's created now, especially music. Probably the number one genre of music is rap and hip hop that we created, you know? So it's just small things like that. It's not even, just give credit where credit is due. Honestly, like take time to like, I don't even know the word I'm looking for. Just teach us more than white history. History is so whitewashed, like, to use the lack of a better term. And I would have thoroughly enjoyed to learn more about history of my color, other than the basics. Like honestly, it's the basics. The civil rights movement is the basics. Sorry, like I can't find any other words for it, honestly.
And it's not even just about like what we are taught in school, it's also about who we are around. And de facto segregation is like very much so alive in Anne Arundel County. And I mean, that might even be the case for other counties around too. But, you know, like, it's like we're segregated based on social class and stuff like that. So we're like, students are not getting the same educational experience that, you know, that we should be in a diverse area. So like I went to Meade and it was predominantly Black. So, you know, I was kind of open to listening. Like it was a lot of Black people, a lot of Hispanic people. So I felt pretty open and understanding and hearing more about like, you know, my culture. Cause I went to a middle school that was in an elementary school that was pretty like predominantly white. So it was like a complete change. So, you know, like, you know, just like it's irritating to know that our income levels determine like the quality of our school and how we're being taught. And, you know, it's like annoying to know that the highly ranked schools with more funds coming to that school, like they have more, you know, chances and opportunities as opposed to people who don't, you know, go to those kinds of schools with more funding. So it's just like, it's not even just, education is like the basic foundation of what needs to change, and the curriculum is the basic foundation of what we need to change. But it's just like who enters that school, who, you know, like who's around the people, and, you know, stuff like that. So yeah.
So I have a question. Did anyone's school send out an email saying like about what's happening and how they feel? Because we did, but but he said in the email, I'm sorry I haven't sent anything sooner. I've been very busy with the online learning.
He said he was exhausted. He was like maybe I think I sent it like late because I was exhausted from online learning. I was like, you really admit that?
And he said he thinks. So it's like crazy how like he put it to the back of his mind when that should be part of the education, is the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, my school.
I want to say What did you say?
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's really a shame that like even though we have high funding, that we don't get like taught the full potential of our education. Like I remember when I went to Baltimore City schools, and even though it was for like a year or two, we got taught like good Black history. Like even though we didn't have all the materials and resources we needed, the teachers were still, since we had so many Black teachers, they were still teaching us like the beauty that we had. And out here, like if it's going to be whitewashed, at least talk about the white destruction. At least like talk about the true history. Don't try and like paint it as like a Disney Pocahontas film, which I think that should be taken away from the public. Don't try to paint like a false picture because it's really destructive. And it's sad. It's really sad that kids out here, especially Black kids, aren't being taught their history. Like it's just like, oh, it is what it is. We had to go through this, and, you know, we were suffering a lot. And it kind of puts you in that mindset. Like if you're not taught anything but that, you're gonna start believing it. And like how we watched the Black kid, what's it called, the boy in the striped pajamas. I think that schools should be obligated to watch instead of Selma Roots. If we're being completely honest, we need the truth. It's not the day and age to try and sugarcoat it. We need more Black teachers. They need to, and staff. They need to fund more. And Arundel County public schools need to pay more. That's why so many people go to like PG County, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, because they pay more. And Arundel County public schools need to get it together with their pay so that you're not being selfish, because we already know that you hide your numbers and real data. Like at least pay it forward to the kids. Don't be selfish. Don't be stingy. Be a good person. Like I know money's power, and you know you want to be at the top of the game, but be a good person and don't only think about yourself. Think about the kids. Like stop being stingy. Stop gatekeeping information. Stop painting a false reality and history for the kids. It's not really, we're stuck in the same cycle of the corrupt world because of the educators that keep on pushing this false curriculum. It's time to change it. And if you're not going to do nothing, if you're going to talk about being exhausted, that's the least you could do for the kids. That is the least that you could do. If you want to do nothing else but that, change the curriculum, pay more teachers of color to try and pull them in, because you need more representation, because that's what's going to have more people, you know, get in your area and try and go to your schools. So stop gatekeeping and try and make it better for you if that's all you want, if you're not looking at it for the students.
Yeah, and talking about films shown in schools, I think we watched like 3 films about the Holocaust, and I think 2 years ago they just decided to add a Black film, but it was the Black Panther. So, like,
Yeah.
The Black Panther movie from the 70s, or
no, the one that came out a couple
like
years
Marvel
ago.
Black Panther.
Yeah.
Stop playing.
Yeah. I was gonna ask something else, but Preston, were you were gonna say something earlier? I think.
Oh, no. What?
If you wanted to. If not, then like.
Well, I was thinking, like, I can only speak for myself, but I know for a lot of points in time of history, when I think, so like World War II, right? When I think of World War II, I instantly think of white soldiers, when there were definitely Black soldiers that served, and when they came home, they were thrown in jail. And I think that's the issue, because they always paint, I think they depict a white savior kind of thing throughout history. Mm-hmm. There's never, so-and-so did this, and it's really almost remedial. It's very I don't know the word I'm looking for. It basically spoon fed almost. Yeah, that's all.
One-sided.
More representation. Long story short.
Yeah.
I want to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry, yeah, well, that actually, so I want to let Chandler ask her question, but I wanted to also pull in Lauren and Evelyn, what your experience was growing up and what your experience was learning about Black history and racism,
Yeah.
especially in
Okay.
schools.
yeah, I was gonna ask something that actually tied into that. Like, how many people really learned that Malcolm X was the bad guy? Well,
Oh.
MLK was yeah. And,
Yeah.
we were taught, Booker T was like the one we should follow, and Du Bois was the one that was like, stay over there, just something to think about, how we're taught to follow peaceful, I guess, leaders.
Yeah, no, and to tie into that, it's so funny how many racist white people love to quote MLK when they're like, well, MLK wouldn't have wanted this. Well, MLK did say that riots were the language of the unheard, and people aren't listening, so I'm sure he would have probably, to some extent, agreed with what's happening. In terms of education, I went to Severna Park High School, and everything you think, every stereotype that you have in your head about it is completely true. Yeah, it's super, super white. A lot of people, very privileged people, and I'm including myself, and I recognize that. And, I try to use my privilege for good. But a lot of the people with privilege don't recognize that they have it or they're entitled to it. And it was kind of the perfect storm in terms of there were almost no Black students. There were, while I was there, like all 4 years, I'm going to say there were less than 5 Black teachers that I was aware of. I was really lucky to have great history teachers, but the curriculum, testing to AP or whatever exams, they wanted to tell us more about Black history, about Native American history, all this stuff, but they could only go so far without, missing out on telling us stuff that we unfortunately had to know for the AP test. So yeah, we learned about civil rights leaders and slavery and stuff. But honestly, like after I graduated high school, I probably could have named more like white inventors than I could have named Black civil rights leaders, which is completely absurd to me. So definitely very whitewashed, definitely more like, who phrased it? What was it, like Black pain rather than Black achievement or something? I totally resonated with that because that's definitely how it felt at Severna Park.
And that, like, just you saying that literally surprised me because you go to Severna, you went to Severna Park, or you still there?
Yeah, I graduated.
Okay, yeah. So you went to Severna Park, and a few of us, we went to Meade. That's like 20 minutes away. Meade is literally predominantly black. Severna Park's predominantly white, and it like that literally the problem is right there. 20 minutes away, and it's like segregated schools basically. And if people, if students are not exposed to diversity, like that's like a growth for like prejudice and stuff like that. So it's just like how it's like the problem is so obvious, and it needs to be raised. It needs to have more awareness to it. And I mean, like, it's just disappointing. Like, it's just like students need to experience diversity. Like they need to experience what it's like to have all the right resources to be successful. It shouldn't just be like, segregated like this.
Yeah, exactly.
This is modern day segregation, low key, high key.
And a lot of like the white kids at my school, they kind of actively refuse to acknowledge that racism does exist. Like in one of my English classes, these 2 kids, one of them was white, one of them was Black. We were talking about police brutality. This was like 2 years ago. And the white kid was like, Black people should just like not commit as many crimes. And you're like, oh my God, how do you even talk to this person? And so his friend who's Black was trying to, give him facts and statistics, and finally gave him a personal account of basically he was at a private beach one time with a bunch of his friends, and he was the only Black one, and the police came down and they had drugs, and he was the only one that was searched. And he poured his heart out to his best friend who's white, and he basically said, "I don't believe you." And that is very indicative of how many white people act at that school, and just in the county and in the country in general. Yeah.
And I think a big problem with Key School is they're like, oh, we're a private liberal arts school. We have so much diversity. We're so inclusive. And I'm very privileged to go to like a private school in Annapolis, but I think they did the math and there's like 13% of the student base is Black. And we don't have any Black teachers. I think we have one Black preschool teacher, and we learn about Black pain and not Black excellence. I didn't learn about Juneteenth. I didn't learn about Black Wall Street. I learned all of my Black history from TikTok and Twitter. And that's like totally unacceptable that they don't teach these incredibly privileged kids like things that we should all be aware of. Key school students, a lot of them definitely don't acknowledge the amount of privilege we have as like white upper middle class people. Preston's leaving. Yeah.
Well, I think he already left, but no worries, Preston. Thank you for being with us. But that does lead me to sort of a very heavy question. And you can feel free to answer it in whatever way you see fit. But essentially, we've been offering our own solutions, or I should say you have been offering solutions and ideas of how you think we could improve, how we talk about race, how we teach race, and how we stop the systemic racism in our country. And I've heard people mention things like the Reconciliation Commission in Berlin. There was one in South Africa about apartheid. There are so many options out there that can help us to become a more empathetic and educated nation. So whatever way you think is best, like legislatively, financially, education, what do you think is the best concrete solution? And it doesn't have to be one, to solving this problem. If you could do whatever you wanted to do to solve this problem, what would you do?
So the government keeps talking about reparations for Black people and what we went through with slavery, but there's been nothing that they've done to show us that they're going to do that, and they just keep saying it and doing nothing. I had a conversation with my mom a couple months ago, and she's like, what should the government, she asked me and my sister, what should the government do about reparations? And I was like, what about when we buy a house or buy land, they just take a tax break off of us? Because we built this country. We're the backbone of it, and we deserve some kind of right to not pay what we have made. And yeah, and also I wanted to mention that the Black teacher at Key, he's a music teacher. He's not even like a main teacher for like anything. So.
And also in our school, we have a diversity lady. I'm curious, does anyone have that in their school by any chance?
But they don't do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say definitely like things like that, like having a diversity director are a good first step. Like having those conversations within schools like we talked about earlier. Bigger things that I think could be unrealistic, I'm not sure. Things like rewording the 13th Amendment. That seems kind of extreme, but if you really look at the language, it basically says slavery is illegal except for as punishment of a crime, right? So you're basically saying you can have slavery under these conditions, which the government can, keep to its own discretion. So stuff like that, things like giving Black people land, because I think, as we all know, land is really crucial in generating wealth. If we had had land, back when things were still, worse than they are now, we could have been so much better off financially. Things like redlining, more money to schools, HBCUs, that would be a good one. Things like, I guess, not gentrification, but putting more money into Black communities, keeping them the culture and the things that make them great and make them so like Black excellent, but without, I guess, putting white institutions in to make them better. So those are just like big ones I could think of off the top of my head. I don't know how how realistic they are to achieve. But yeah.
Y'all basically said what I wanted to say. I was about to say, run us our money. Like that. That's first and foremost. Before we start anything else, run us our money, our 40 acres, fuel, and our money, because we were scammed, basically. And also, like with the prison reform, we think about it like the system has literally always been designed to ruin us and keep us at the bottom. Like sharecropping was just another name for slavery. And if you think about it, the jail systems was created to keep, Black people in a labor force, basically working on Black land, on white land. So like, not even white land, working to create this country. So the system was created. It wasn't even a real good system, if you think about it. So create a prison reform and put money into the communities that you destroyed with crack and guns and violence, and try to paint it as that we did it. Create rehab centers, put them in those communities, and don't charge people for, help. Put money into the schools and change the curriculum, and don't try to paint a false picture. Stop stop invading people's lands. Stay out of the hood. Leave us with that little bit of culture that we have. Run us some money.
I also think that with the Black community, especially, I think it's all of the above, whether it be education, financial support, Medicare, like all of these things need to be addressed, because when you have so many Black families in poverty, that's really the only thing that stands out. And I'm blessed to be in the position that I am today and to have what I have, but hearing stories of Black families that are just trying to make ends meet and trying to level the playing field for their families and trying to provide for them, I couldn't help but feel sorry for them, and to think that their government has completely forgot about them, where Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water. Like simple issues that just need to be fixed. And hearing personal accounts from a friend that I had back in middle school, where his family was, I hate to say it, but they were in pretty bad financial shape, and he would come to school wearing the same clothes, and sometimes I would ask him, like, just why? Out of curiosity, why do you come to school in the same clothes? And he says, because we can't afford any. And that was it. And I was like, well, what are your plans after middle school, after high school? Like, what do you plan to do? And he basically told me, my plan after high school is to get a job and help provide for my mom who's sick. And to me, I'm like, it seems like the system has forgotten about the Black people in poverty, honestly. And it's a shame, because we have all these urban cities with these immense populations of Black people who can't even level the playing field, who can't even start at zero, who are already at negative. It really this brings to shame where our nation is right now.
I would like to add another point, because a lot of times it's nothing wrong with thinking about ourselves, but we also have to think about the Native Americans and the indigenous people, because this land was stripped from them, and we don't talk about reservations enough. We definitely do not have enough awareness of reservations. There is barely any medical centers in reservations. They're like in low states, and it's a shame, because many people take their kids and put them in like the social service system, and you see it a lot of like all people want is their kids. They want to preserve their culture, because basically that's all they have left. But there's not enough funding. I think that the natives deserve their reparations too. Natives and Black people deserve their reparations, because we need to help them build themselves up. You know, like so many of them helped us. And it's just a shame. Like, it's like we're in America. We like to talk about America and all the wins that we had, you know. And a lot of people want to talk about how we wasn't in the past. We weren't slaves, you know. We weren't the ones getting our lands taken from us. They weren't the ones who were like the masters and stuff like that. They didn't do all this. But let's be realistic. Like, we're still suffering from what, I'm not going to say there, but like our ancestors did. Like, we're just deserving. And even though, let's say, like, a lot of people who's deserving don't get enough, if we want to move forward, we need to fix those. Like, we need to change that. We really do.
I just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to answer that question. So, yeah, Dylan, Marin, Lauren, Evelyn, what are your thoughts about about the many possible solutions to these problems?
I've just been agreeing with everything that everyone has said. I think that the main thing is just reparations. Like, you know, like, these are our ancestors. Give us respect. Like, they built this country from the ground up. Like, they built this country with the foundation that we have today. So, you know, it's just like, I don't want to say money solves all problems, but it can definitely help a lot of people who, you know, a lot of Black people who are really going through it right now. Like,
I would say an important solution to make change would be advocacy. So advocating for yourself, advocating for your community in order to make change. If you don't advocate, nothing will happen. So that's the schools, daily life, jobs, social. So advocacy is a big one.
and can I just add on to Dylan's as well? Like, advocacy is so big and it needs to be respected, because when Colin Kaepernick kneeled silently during the national anthem, that was his form of advocating for us Black people. But he was ridiculed and he was slandered, which is like, you know, you can't disrespect somebody for, you know, advocating for what he believes in. And, you know, now the NFL wants to say Black Lives Matter and donate, you know, $250 million. No, like that, like, like, you can't, it's not, no, like, it's just, you can't silence our voice, or, you know, you can't sit here and do two different things. And it's just like, you need to respect like people who are advocating for us and for what we believe in. So yeah.
Yeah, just like going along with the Kaepernick thing, like, I guess people love telling Black people how to mourn and how to kind of reconcile with all of the racism and hate that has been present in this country since its formation. Like with Colin Kaepernick, yeah, people are like, this is not how you should be protesting. And then people come to the streets with Black Lives Matter, and what is it, 2015, and they're protesting peacefully, and no, that's not good. And so you have, you know, Black artists and musicians and other athletes that speak out, but that's not their place because they're not politicians. And so finally you have present day where some of the protests have turned violent and people are like, well, they should be doing something else. Well, what else do you want them to do? They've done everything. So I think people need to be listening to what Black people have to say, no matter how they're expressing it. And I think hopefully now people are starting to realize that.
Absolutely.
And I definitely think that people don't recognize the fact that, like, there's so many different factors that go into, like, disadvantaging Black communities and communities of color. Like, they don't recognize that the environmental issues, how the government purposefully puts like unsafe toxins in Black neighborhoods, or like food deserts. Like, the government has done everything they can to screw over people of color, and people don't recognize how systemic the problems are going. Like, they literally like dump toxic chemicals into like communities of color, and they say it's like an accident.
Yeah, it's crazy. Race is the #1 indicator for whether or not you live next to or like in proximity to a toxic waste plant, which is, I mean, honestly, it's messed up, but it's not really that surprising, which is, you know, a huge problem.
Mikhail, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I wasn't saying anything.
Well, we are coming up on time, but so we have a few more minutes. This has been an amazing discussion, and but I had one last question. I've been also looking at Facebook to see who's been tuning in, and you have a lot of adults who are so impressed by all of you and your insight and your awareness. But is there anything that you want to say to those adults right now about how you think, I mean, you have more of the future ahead of you than we do. And so you have more time to change. And so what can the adults watching, what can I do, what can we do to make the future a better place for you to work in and prepare for you to make that change? Even though you're already kind of making that change now, there's not a lot of preparation to be done for that, but but you get what I mean.
Not only being against Black people is important, you have to take in the other people of race and different sexualities and different genders and make sure you're not racist against those people, because those people are being discriminated against too.
I would also say it would really mean a lot for some people older than us to see that we're here and we are people and we do have our own thoughts and opinions. So it would just, you know, it's nice to see that there are people older than us who support us and don't just take those meddling kids type approach. You know, because we do see what's going on. It's not that we're completely oblivious. So just, you know, it would just be nice to see some support. And we do right now on the streets. There's tons of people of all different age groups. So just continuing that would be nice.
I want to send a completely honest and heartfelt and non-sugar-coated message to other adults. Please do not put that pig back in office. You know, we could have been done with the COVID thing, the quarantine, but he kept the information from the public. You know, we have so many kids that's being sexually assaulted in the cages that y'all wanted to put the kids in because, you know, so-called their parents was criminals. We are going through this stuff because of him. And so many people voted, you know, just because you don't want to vote against somebody or just because you didn't want to vote against him, you contributed to that. And now we have to try and fix what you did. You basically put another Ronald Reagan in the office. You know, please do not put that pig back in office. I'm begging you, do not put him back in office. You will, if you do, this will be an even worse America than it is today.
And adding on to that, that's why we need to vote. Voting is important. Trump obviously has caused destruction in this country. He's a narcissist, you know, only cares about himself. From my opinion, doesn't care about anyone else. Just rich white men.
Yeah. Come on now. How you gonna vote for somebody that says grab her by the pussy? Like, come on now. Calls Black people thugs. Like, you're adding to the problem by voting for him. Be smart. Don't be dumb. I'm sorry. That's all.
And to add on to that, like, we need to vote for political leaders who are like actually gonna listen to us and not say that they'll do something and not do anything about it. Because there have been many, you know, leaders in our past who say that they're hearing us, but they're not listening. They can hear us, but they're not listening. So we don't want people who are just gonna talk for show and, you know, put on a facade just to you know, get elected and then not help us. No, we need to really look into our leaders who are, you know, running for positions. We need to look into if they are literally passionate about what they're gonna do and not for the title and not for the money. So
think that, you know, as being a young person myself, I think that I would love to see a government system that considers all voices and listens to all opinions and all sides of or all point of views, because being young in this country, it almost feels as if everything is stacked against you
Yeah.
when it comes to the system, and it really shouldn't be like that. And if we're going to be the future, which I hear all the time, you know, young people are the future, they're going to change the world, they're going to do all these big things. Well, it doesn't seem like it. It seems like everything is pushing against that. And I would love to see change and advocacy, and just to be a part of that, definitely, in this country. I think that's definitely what we need now.
Anybody else have any final comments?
Yes, like don't only listen to the young people, you also have to provide them with support and resources while still kind of being that silent, not silent, but like the supportive ally to that. Like we get, you have your opinions and you want to speak about them, but if you really want to be an ally to young people, you have to follow their plan of action. And that also does apply to being a white ally to Black people as well.
Okay, well, I think that this has been an amazing discussion. Just so that, yeah, go ahead.
Just before we all log off, I just want to say Will Smith said it best. He said, "Racism is not getting worse; it's just getting recorded." Totally agree. You know, it's always been there. So, me and my good friend Jared Rogers were putting together a protest this Saturday. It's happening in the Russet Library at 1 p.m. June 20th. So I would really love everybody who's watching, everybody who's tuned in right now, stand with us, stand with the youth. If you guys want to help us, stand with us, stand by us. And we'll be marching around the community, and it would be so appreciated if you guys were able to come out. Again, that's at the Russet Library, so come support us. So yeah.
Is there a flyer anywhere for that? Or like,
yes, there is a flyer. Where can I send that?
You can send it to the Arundel Patriot, and we'll make sure that it gets to everybody on this call. So I believe it's editor@thearundelpatriot.org. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Can you say one more time what the library is?
Russet Library, RUSSETT. So it's in Anne Arundel County, so it should be, a little too close,
Okay, awesome. All right, so this has been, thank you for sharing that, Maren. There's always, it's always good to get the events out. Thank you I'm sorry, I didn't have coffee this morning. Thank you to all of the participants for being here. This was a very insightful, amazing conversation. Thank you to everybody that was watching, that is paying attention to the voices of these youth, because as I think Chandler put it, a lot of times it's just seen as those meddling kids, and those meddling kids are the ones that are going to bring us into a brighter future. So I'm appreciative for everyone who watched them. For everyone who's going to skip to the end, I did want to just reiterate what the youth came up with as some good solutions, which include reparations to Black people, increased money to historically Black colleges and universities, more money into Black communities without gentrification, rewording of the 13th Amendment, just getting all of the money to all of the marginalized communities that need it, increased advocacy, understanding that everything is connected, from racial justice to environmental justice to LGBTQ rights, everything is connected, and vote. And know who you're voting for, and don't just vote in the big national or federal elections, vote in every election. So thank you all for all of your time. And if I could invite the panelists to stay on after the live ends, I think we're gonna have a debrief, but thank you all for tuning in. And this once again has been Straight Talk About Racism, or S.T.A.R. Thank you to the Arundel Patriot for allowing us to use your platform. Again, if you'd like to contribute to the Arundel Patriot and continue to get good news from them, or just the news from them, you can become a Patreon subscriber. For $5 a month. You can get access to really important news. So thank you so much and have a great day.